Hi.
Hi. Yes, we're sitting. We're not moving.
We're working on some education today.
Yes. It's good to take a rest day sometime.
Yeah. All right. So I'm super excited to talk about this. We're going to talk about just the core. And we're going to redefine what you think of the core. And we reached out to some of our friends or clients or kind of went through what we talk about with people all day.
Make sure. Is the mic on?
We have a little green light.
Okay, good. Sorry. Making sure. Mic check.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Sorry.
Just kind of what our experience is about the core and how misunderstood the core is. So, what is the core? The canor. I feel like that today.
Not that early yet.
The core is anything that connects to the pelvis. So you have 54 muscles that connect to the pelvis. And if you thought about, or if you talk about, if I asked you what muscles connect to your pelvis, you're gonna think about all of the big ones. Your glutes, your quads, your core muscles. Well, what are your core muscles? But there's a lot of smaller, more intricate muscles, and those are often the ones that get ignored and aren't as involved in our movements because they're smaller, we don't know about them, and those are the ones that kind of contribute to our chronic pain. I love that I wrote disorganized, and I really think that that's a huge component, is that the muscles get disorganized on who's doing what.
Well, who has what role?
Right. So these smaller muscles, the big muscles are kind of like bullies, and they're like, move and tell the smaller muscles not to do the work. So these smaller muscles just kind of stop coming to the party, and the bigger muscles take over. So then they become very disorganized at who's doing what, and that leads to breakdown. And through that breakdown, when we have the pain, it's these small ones, but we don't really feel it or we don't really notice it. And then it gets into our bigger muscles. And that's when we're like, oh, my hip hurts, my this hurts, my that hurts. But by then it's not this small problem. It's kind of, by the time it brings your awareness, and then you've probably ignored it for 2 to 3 months, hoping that it would go away. Now we have a much bigger breakdown in the chain of command, is what I have found in my experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. What often I think also happens is that when we try to heal an injury, we think that reducing the weight, the intensity, then we'll stop working out as much or as hard, we'll change up and maybe stop lifting and go into walking or something like that. Before we actually go in and target that healing. Mm-hmm. And that's where the chronic repetitive injuries come from.
Yes.
As opposed to understanding that the whole thing is not just these big muscles, but this whole unit of working, the cohesiveness.
They support your structure. It's like a building, Mm-hmm. The pillars and the foundation and how it's laid out, and then the rest is cosmetic at that point.
Right, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But those deep core stabilizers are the ones that are going to help you move better and do bigger, better movements. Without them, your foundation is very weak, your internal structure is very weak, mm-hmm. and then your performance is limited in terms of more exercise, stronger, or stronger clients. But also in your daily living activities, that's when you can blow out your back picking something up from the floor.
I just did a consultation yesterday. He's like, I was bending over and I just put my back out.
Yeah.
That one bending over was not the problem.
Yes. There's a lot of weakness in very important areas that help you move efficiently in your daily living activities. So
yeah, it's usually a long period of time.
Yeah, people ignore things for more than just 2 months, sometimes for a very long time, mm-hmm. like years, mm-hmm. So it's a very weak structure. And strengthening these smaller muscles, these stabilizers, are not going to make you less weak, you know. They're going to make you stronger.
More powerful.
Yes, way more powerful. Stabilizers are the ones that help you deliver power movements, you know. Stabilize you in dynamic movements also. So like I said, like super big muscles are just cosmetic.
Yeah, and they're the movers.
Hypertrophy is just cosmetic at that point.
Right. They're the movers. They're the muscles that move you in space, power.
And we define, like, we see a strong person, or what we consider someone strong is someone that holds their body up in space well, that can move efficiently when they're doing gardening or whatnot, you know, and they are not in chronic pain, and they're not in pain all the time. Their machine is moving in such a way where it's not breaking them down all the time. So that's what a strong person really is, you know.
Absolutely.
You can look strong, but not be.
I think we've both worked with people who aesthetically are very strong and can move weight, but
can't balance.
Well, and they don't have the stability.
Yeah, they don't have.
They're chronically
injured. They're so unstable. They cannot balance on a single foot. Like, huge muscles everywhere.
Right. Beautiful aesthetics.
Make them balance on one foot with their foot with good alignment, and it's like a shaky foundation. You can just see it. And for those who are strong, that are having a lot of pain and low back pain and hip pain, check yourself. The stronger you get, the more those little muscles can weaken. So, you know, that's where we talk about stabilizers today, and redefining the core and what it really is and how it supports you for real, you know.
I think one of the most common questions, or prescriptions even, for physical therapy and chiropractors and people who deal with movement is, I have back pain. We'll strengthen your core. Why do I have this back pain if I have a strong core?
But it's like a general, like, it's like generalizing something.
Generalized,
like generalize.
yes.
Like, okay. Because I'm like the next person.
Right.
Like, you know, you want the right exercises that are going to benefit you. So everybody's different.
I think most people equate the core to crunches.
Yeah,
right.
Yes, absolutely. It's what is more commonly known.
Right. I do my crunches, so why do I not have a strong core? Or why do I have back pain?
Or I need to strengthen my core to get back pain. That can be dangerous sometimes. That idea is very dangerous sometimes.
Right. Well, and if you think about crunches, it's constant flexion of the spine. So someone who has major back pain, that consistent flexion might be in progressing their back pain.
Yes,
actually.
And let me clarify something too, because there's a lot of therapists and stuff like that out there that be saying some wild stuff. Like, sorry guys, no, you should be able to do forward flexion and then, okay, yes, but everybody once again is different. You understand? Some clients may have much more degeneration in the spine, and that may be gone. You understand? So that ability to do forward flexion, that's like what, when you're like 15, 20, 25, 30, you still have good forward flexion. We're getting complicated at 35, getting complicated at 40. Things are just changing. Gravity is you're, you know, things are happening. Body mechanics are changing. So yes, flexion is fine for some. Extension is good for some. You want to have ranges of motion in both. But, you know, it's not that you don't have to push that. You don't have to, you can work in other ways. If you do have injuries in the spine, where you can move more efficiently and take care of your spine and stop doing so much repetitive flexion for no reason, you know.
And when you work crunches,
you're
only working a certain set of muscles, your rectus abdominis muscle, your six-pack muscles. Those are what so many people think of as the core muscle and what crunches are targeting, but there's a whole multiple other muscles surrounding the torso, as like, think of the torso like a canister, like a soda can or something, that it's strong and round. So you're only working one part of that motion.
You can overflex the spine. You can put pressure on it, like repetitive pressure. There are better ways of moving and targeting muscles that doesn't require you to consistently jam that spine, you know. So, and that's what true core exercises are. those that help the stability of the spine, that help you create strong muscles to support, lift, and elevate, because as the deep core muscles get stronger, you're going to create some nice buoyancy, some nice space within too. You're not going to be so
comes back to that decompression.
Crunching and flexing. And yes, we can flex, but you want to watch out and you want to make sure you're doing things that actually are worth you doing a flexion for.
Absolutely. And so it's not bad. But it's just a small, small portion of the whole core.
Yeah.
You know, when I think of core, actually, I think the first thing I think of is the transverse, because it connects to the spine in the back and then wraps all the way around and closes at the linea alba in the front of the body. And that's where my brain goes when I think of core. I want that to be strong so that I have this stacked, stable, and then you have your internal and external obliques that are supporting that. Then you have, that.
Yeah, the deep spinal stabilizers too. The posterior chain, I feel, is a core.
Of course, 100%.
I feel is core.
It connects to the pelvis. Your psoas, your QL, and the front and the back, right? Those are, I like to think of those as like 2x4s.
Yes.
Holding up the ribs and the hips away from one another so we don't have all these funky
core is the
divisions.
trunk from the front, the trunk from the back.
And the side.
And the side too, yes, and the side too.
Think of that like a Coke can.
Yes, it is.
Like
it's like a belt, like a brace. So it's not just strengthening the front. It's not only strengthening the back, which I've also learned myself, that it's important to balance both. Very important to balance both. So you don't want to overdo the low back strengthening or the back extensions, and you don't want to do the overdo the anterior core. It's all about creating a nice balance when you're really talking about, strengthening and stabilizing the important core muscles. That's why everybody's unique and individual. If you have any questions, let us know. Your unique shape, structure, posture, and then we'd love to help you too, and finding the right exercises or just talk about that. So that's why it's so hard to give a general recommendation.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people, another one that we found is, how do I strengthen my core without hurting my low back or my neck?
Yeah.
So many people, again, we're in these crunches and it's the neck and the arms doing the work as opposed to coming from the core.
Yeah.
So I always start out clients like, I love a good supine core work. Just laying on the back, reverse tabletop position is one of my favorites. And it starts with breathing and organizing those muscles.
Yes.
The diaphragm connects to your spine. So it's the top of, when we go into next episode, we're going to talk about pelvic floor. And the diaphragm is the top of this dome of the torso. It's part of the core 4 muscles, which we'll get into in the next episode. So organizing the muscles so that those core muscles on the back are strong and stable and organized first.
Say core hip muscles, right? Hip complex. Pelvic complex.
Isometrics are my favorite. You build these canister muscles, I call them. And the pelvic floor is, of course, the bottom of that core 4. And when you breathe, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor should move together. They expand at the same time, they contract at the same time,
diaphragm
ideally.
Is the core.
Absolutely. It's the top of the, I like to think of it as the top of the can.
Yes,
the core.
It is the top of the can, absolutely. Yes.
And then from there, you progress onto a tabletop and into a plank position, right? And then you can move into all the fun things.
Okay, I'm totally going to drop some critique here. So I was watching the exercise scientist guy.
Okay.
That he's against planking.
The one that you showed me the other day?
Yeah, he's great. He's great. I like him. Listen, some things I like, some things I don't like. It's all good. But he was coming down on the plank saying that it doesn't strengthen, your abdominal muscles or whatever. But the recommended exercise was the wheel, which, if you really think about it, the wheel?
Yeah.
You really think about it. It's a plank with your hands overhead.
Well, it's a moving plank. It doesn't make any sense. It's a moving plank.
I was just like, oh my God, I can't deal with it right now. So yes, the way to progress to that is to be able to hold a plank in a correct way, in a structured way, in such a way where then you can start to get the arms to move overhead.
It's a moving plank.
Oh my God, I'm going to put him on because it's just, I was like, no, why are you coming down on the planks? He comes down pretty hard on him. He's kind of funny.
Interesting.
But then I'm like, it's a plank with your arms overhead.
Right.
You need to have such a strong like anterior core for that.
Yes.
And prep that trunk in that way.
Yep.
So it can stay that way as you're doing the,
Right. Oh
it's a great exercise.
Yes.
And if I start doing that, I'm sure I'm going to have a six pack and shoulders at the same time.
Yes.
Shit is hard.
I always start clients on the TRX with body saws. They're torture. I hate them.
So, yeah. You like this? Is this what you're looking at?
I kept looking in the mirror to see it.
I'll put it up. She's
showing?
like, the lower back spine, the obliques, the transverse, the diaphragm, the rotators.
I think knowing how to engage your core is really challenging.
Yes.
I find that getting people to really engage their full core on an exhale is super hard. Again, it comes back to that organization. And people who lift a lot, they do the Valsalva maneuver.
Yes.
Maneuver's not the word, I guess.
The bracing technique.
But it's a bracing technique for intra-abdominal pressure, which is the opposite of like being able to fully contract and engage your core for stability and support.
I think the yogis lean more towards that way. The more serious. They really know how to it's like, God damn, I can't pull my belly back like that.
Well, they do all of the what's the waving?
God damn, how much should I have to breathe to get my abdomen like that? At the end, we're strengthening them is the breathing technique.
Right.
Breathing also helps to strengthen your abdominal muscles. Bodybuilders also do some techniques like that once they get to a higher level. It's part of their training is the drawing of the abdomen back and the bracing of that. So yes, it does strengthen, it does draw your deep core abdominal muscles back. So breathing is, we don't have to go to that extreme, neither yogi nor bodybuilding, but you get the gist of it,
Mm-hmm.
Also when diastasis recti, it's mostly breathing based,
And organizing those muscles.
Yeah, and organizing those muscles and firing them up. But yes, people lose complete mental or connection or awareness of how to that they even exist, the deep core muscles.
Yep. I think that's the hardest thing for people on the exhale, to find their core.
Yeah, you just gotta give it time. You gotta give it feels.
Connection.
You gotta make you gotta tap in and try to connect mentally and physically. I was talking to a client about that. I was like, relax. Yesterday when I was training one of my clients at the gym, I'm like a sensei, breathe. Do you feel the feet? Feel the shift of the weights, how it's moving to the right and you're not putting it to the left. Because sometimes we need to be brought into awareness of
course,
what. So
our body moves unconsciously.
Exactly. Working with someone that can help you do that, once again, is important. Their voice, their guidance, their eye is going to help you activate muscles. Even the best of us train. The better you are, the more you like to train with trainers.
Oh my God, yes.
Best athletes all have trainers. So remember, sometimes you can't do these things on your own.
Because we all move in our patterns. We don't realize we're in our patterns.
Even us.
Oh my God.
Like when we check each other.
Yes, I'm like, no, you're lying to me. I was like, but
I got videos. I'm gonna bring them up.
Video. I'm gonna show you.
Because we don't sometimes we don't feel it. Even I don't feel what I'm doing sometimes.
And then when you're put in alignment, you're like, well, this isn't right.
It's normal response.
But do crunches and sit-ups really work?
No, if you're not ready for them, it won't work. You
Well,
gotta
I do
earn
think
it.
they strengthen the front six-pack rectus abdominis muscles, but that's it. I think there's more bang for your buck in other places.
Yes, I get a lot from the planking and the plank variations and all that stuff. But me, that I'm a little bit more hyperextended, I enjoy a little bit of crunch, not an overwhelming amount. But I just don't got it like just some of these girls do. They got the front little ribs popping up. So I feel like I have to draw that down. But then I see some of these girls with these really deep abdomens that they obviously need some back extension, because you can tell their abdomen is overly tight. So once again, it depends on what you need. I would say yes and no,
Yeah,
it depends.
Absolutely. And that can change throughout your training.
Absolutely, it can change, absolutely.
And that's where that awareness comes in.
Knowing when to revamp your training and tweak and stuff like that. That's very good for you to know.
But why can't I feel my core when I work out?
If you're not feeling your core, you're not there yet.
Right.
You got to feel it without doing much at all. Breathing, bracing, and then we can move on to the dynamics.
I find that too many people move too fast through, you know,
not
their
there
crunches.
yet.
They're just moving so fast.
I feel
don't
it.
have any intention. So,
But when we're doing it, because we know core engagement, bracing, breathing technique, pump, and then we apply all of that if we are doing our core exercises. But if you're just, even if you're doing a plank and you're just hanging there, you're not going to feel it either.
right.
You have to know what you need, what you need to engage. You need to feel these deep stabilizers, you know. So
Absolutely.
it's
I
weak.
think it's
The
just
stabilizers are weak if you're not feeling it. That's the answer. If you're not feeling it in your core routine, if you're not feeling your crunches, if you're feeling your neck more, if you're feeling your hip flexors more,
shoulders are trying to do it, right?
you don't have the stability. You don't have these deep stabilizers firing up to then kind of build up into your bigger ones. Your six pack, what everybody knows now.
Oh my God. What role does the pelvic floor play in core strengthening?
Okay.
So the bottom of the core for muscles.
So looking at this is
Directly
great. It's so
related to the
simple. Let's
larger
just
hip
stay. Let's
muscles.
just stay the whole time in our thing, because it's just the lower part. It's just the arrow down. You know, the pelvic floor.
Oh, that's that canister. Yep.
Yeah, it's just the canister with the arrow.
Okay. So they're the bottom.
Zeus, go turn it off.
Right? I'm just gonna let that go because it's so loud. Why is my phone so loud?
I don't know.
Oh my God. So the pelvic floor is so important because it's the bottom of your
Core.
that canister of the core. And we're gonna dive into this in the next one. But it has so much to do with your breathing. And what I find is most women are too tight in their pelvic floor, and then they have incontinence or they may leak when they jump, you know, all of those kinds of things. And the muscles are actually too tight because it can't expand and release. They can't eccentrically release the muscles.
Well,
and then doing Kegels, one, they usually do Kegels wrong. Two,
Yeah.
it's over tightening, you know, you're trying to contract muscles that are already over contracted. So that plays a huge role in back pain because of how you can't recruit those muscles, and then however it plays into your patterning, whether it's into extension and your glutes are really tight, or you're really, you know, compressed and forward on that.
yeah. So it's tightness is not always that muscle's strong. It can be that
weakness.
it's misaligned and it's weak, especially when there's a lot of misalignment. You need to understand that you're going to be pulling the muscles in the improper direction. So that itself creates tightness. You understand?
And imbalance.
So don't think you gotta go do pigeon pose all day now.
Oh my God. Stop
Okay?
it.
Because people,
I just can't.
because it's tight doesn't mean you gotta stretch it.
Oh my God.
That's another topic.
It's a Band-Aid.
That's another topic. So
And we'll get into this in the next one, but also
Yeah.
I love to say that the bladder is just a muscle.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
learning how to strengthen that actual muscle is huge into pelvic health.
Yes.
But again, we're going to dive into that in the next episode.
Oh my God, there's so much.
So much.
So much.
So
So much.
that's what we kind of just wanted to tap into the core because I've had it come up a lot.
I'm down. Let's keep chatting some more about this.
In my...
Getting fired up.
Oh God, don't get
What else you got
fired up,
there?
y'all. Those were like the most common questions
we're
that I think
trickling
we
down.
get.
So the deep spinal stabilizers, which, you know, the spinal muscles and stuff like that. Remember, I'm gonna touch that back because we forget about those too. We
What?
want to have
The
those
back
strong.
muscles?
Yes, the multifidus and stuff
The
like that.
multifidus is also part of the core four muscles.
Yes, exactly. So that is also your core, okay? Not just the front.
Connects to the spine.
I
the
need
pelvis.
I need to make sure that everybody understands that, and we're not just talking about the front of the body, but also the back of the body.
The side of the body.
Yes, and the side of the body also. So once again, side planks are also very good too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So side planks are very good for stabilizing your
Your gait
glutes.
pattern.
Yeah.
Which is part of your core for stabilization again.
Yes.
Does having a strong core is the same as having a flat stomach?
No, like I said, like the anterior rib cage, or some girls are like inch strong, like when talking about six packs. You understand? I've seen some girls that their ribs are just so far back, their back is flat. Like they're starting to get that. So you can tell there's like that imbalance. So no, just having a flat tummy doesn't mean you're stable. You understand?
I think it's a huge misconception in our culture that just because you're small, you're strong. But I know lots of small people who are extremely unhealthy and weak, and lots of larger people who are strong as fuck.
Yes, it's just different. Everybody's muscle build is different, and their structure is different. We're not all the same. Some are taller, some are wider. Bones are structured more dense. Some are more, muscles are more lean. So it doesn't matter how you look. Once again, it's really how well you're moving, how strong you're moving, how your deep stabilizers help you in your daily activities, in your workout routine. And once again, you're not in pain all the time. We can have pain, but if you're in pain all the time, there's things going on. There's body parts that are not stable and connecting to support you,
The body will whisper and whisper and whisper until it begins to yell, until it begins to scream, and then it will break down.
Injuries too can affect, I'll bring an example. I had like a quick consult, like on the spot, with someone who had a severe traumatic injury to the cervical spine, right? It was fractured. He was walking around with a fractured neck, didn't even know. And then now 2 years, 3 years down the road, after they obviously fused the neck because they had to, it was an emergency, the whole structure is completely gone. So injuries too, depending on what you had, that's an extreme injury. But if you had a hip injury, if you had a knee injury, your deep core stabilizers can be, can be affected by that, and if you do have prior injuries, you want to make the most effort in strengthening these muscles. Are really going to support you. Like even in that case that the neck was so affected, like the hips now are destroyed. They need to drain the hips because they're imbalanced. But we went over how important breathing decompression is and how important strengthening the deep core stabilizers of the back, the pelvic floor, also a male, is going to help take pressure off, someone that's working out with a trainer either or, but they're still in so much pain. The workout is not going to fix it. It's not going to fix it. So they need to strengthen, very important to strengthen these. They're your life muscles, they're your longevity muscles.
I was just going to say your longevity muscles.
Longevity muscles,
And I think it's important to understand that core strength is equal and has a direct relationship with your posture.
Oh my God, I'm mad at PTs this week. It's just complicated.
So the more you improve your posture, the stronger your core will get.
Maybe you just adapted to that posture.
Well, yes, the body's going to adapt.
It's going to create adaptation. Yeah.
Right.
Are you going to leave it like that with the foot stuck outward? Really? It's fine. You just adapted to being like that.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my God.
Well, and I think that's the huge problem.
How are we going to fix this?
Well, now you're going to get me riled up because that's the huge problem with insurance-based physical therapy, and it's no one's. Listen, it's the system. But if you get a prescription for physical therapy for your shoulder, they're only going to work on your shoulder. The shoulder is just where the pain might have manifested and come out, but the deeper pain might be in the hips or the rib cage or all of that, but they can't address that because by, law and insurance, they're tied to that shoulder.
Yes, and then posture.
Which just, right, there's a whole thing that they're missing.
I've
because
covered posture a lot, and posture is your ability to move your body in space in an efficient way where you're not mechanically destroying yourself. You understand? And staying stuck in adaptation is adapted. Poor body posture is not.
That can be undone.
Yeah, that's not gliding in space smoothly.
No.
So, and once again, that poor postural pattern is lack of adaptation. Lack of proprioception and awareness. And all that stuff. So posture goes beyond just a fixed body position. It's how good you're moving in your environment. It's how
well can your body hold itself in space.
Yeah, and you always want to go with the organic curves of the spine and the alignments.
And that's a
of the
huge
legs.
thing with, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. It just popped into my head. When a lot of people do core work, they're always, you always hear the cue, flatten your low back into the ground. Or maybe just like learn how to engage your muscles so that you can hold your natural curvature and not flex your spine.
Yes, when you're doing core, there should be a very subtle little lumbar curve right above the level of the sacrum.
natural curvature.
It's very small.
Yeah.
It's natural. What is an outward curve is your thoracic. So
Right.
that's what you want to make sure is on the ground from the end of the T-spine
Yep.
to the top of the T-spine. Because also the cervical neck has that natural
Right.
in wave curve. So I was saying the focus of core exercises is you want to keep that T-spine in mind and that thoracic, which is still breathing, which is still the diaphragm,
Yep.
ending at that point. So I was saying that deep abdominal core activation will come from addressing that thoracic and that rib cage positioning as you're doing the core.
Yes, because
you're doing
you
your
would be
core workout.
strengthening your back muscles if you held your natural lumbar curvature.
Alignment, yeah, nowhere there did I say flatten the low back, which is a natural inward curve, which is gonna
You're
kind
gonna
of shut off your muscles. But I see it all the time. I see those people like, I'm gonna tuck
it's
my
the
belly,
cue.
and their belly has no muscle.
Everyone tells them in every exercise class I've ever taken for any kind of core work, flatten your
And then
low
the
back.
ribs are out,
Right.
But then this is like back. It's like, what shape? I'm gonna find that shape. I'm gonna pull it up somewhere. But the ribs have to be drawn down, and then the low back has to have that natural little wave. You know what? A tail it wags all together. It's not separated. Huh? One curve is affected, the other one is gonna become affected. So.
That's a huge thing that I work on with my clients is
Yeah.
to not flatten the low back. Find those
Follow the
back
organic
muscles.
curves of the spine.
Yep.
You know, follow that.
And it's harder because you're not used to working in that.
Yeah, it does. That's a good one because they do say that should be
time.
banned.
All the time.
Tuck your pelvis in. Squeeze your ass. Don't squeeze your ass. Don't squeeze your ass in. Sorry. Don't squeeze your butt in and forward. You know, like pelvic tuck. Don't do that.
When doing core exercises?
I've heard it for a lot of things.
Well, because you want your deep
with
transverse to work.
Even with hip thrusts, like push that's like sacral compression. But anyways, yes, don't tuck your tail in. Don't squeeze your butt in like a little, I don't know, like a weird thing. Follow the natural curves. Follow the driving through the hip. Follow the rib cage position, and everything's gonna be nice and tight in. The rest is extra sprinkles on top, you know. When I look at someone, that's what I look at, even when they're strong, if they're very strong. It's like, are they holding the natural organic curves of the spine? Are they driving through the hip? When I really look at the more athletic crowd, you know, the influencers and stuff like that too. You know, how are they really moving?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not gonna lie, some of them have some pretty good movements. People are more aware. I think more of the trainers now are more aware of this.
Yes.
NASM really comes down on this a lot. I love them. Love you, NASM. NASM.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends.
You're my friend. I'm starting to look for my certification's up in a year, so I'm starting to look for the continuing education course I want to take.
Oh, but for them?
Mm-hmm.
Really? It's time for you already?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, 2 years.
Then I have my corrective exercise ready to go.
Mm.
They have nutrition.
I'm hoping Joe Drake does a landmine course that will be.
He's great. The little guy, blonde.
Yeah. No.
I have his emails.
Brown.
He sends me tons of emails, that's for sure.
Every Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But he just wrote a book on landmine, so I'm hoping that he'll create a course too.
So I think core, I think core, the most pain I see happening in styles of exercise, Pilates, bar, back pain.
Bar. God.
These are sometimes styles that say they strengthen your core and it doesn't.
You want to strengthen your core? Do some deadlifts.
Yeah. So yoga too, also. A lot of the more modern teachers, they teach more mechanically sane, I think. They're less tucked in, you know.
Yes, I definitely feel like we've moved from the tuck.
Yeah, we've moved off from that. So, and what else with the core?
I think that was a good strong core. We're going to do a core workout with some of our favorites in 2 weeks. And then we're going to talk about the pelvic floor next week. All right, friends.
Male, female pelvic floor next week. So join us. Look, right on time. How do you know we're done? How do you know we're done? Wow, such a good boy. Well, we'll see you for the next one. Hope you enjoy. Hope you learn a little. Drop a comment.
Bye, friends.
Let us know how you're
you.
feeling. Ask us questions. We'll see you for the next one.
Bye.
Pelvic motion.
Susie, why are you so cute,
Oh, you did
baby?
such a good